are exiting stage left. There you go. All right, worldviewreport.com. Thanks for watching and listening. Take care.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Further south in the city of Isfahan, Fox News was able to make contact with a man who is using Starlink. He described battles between protesters and security forces who are using live ammunition. On the call, he said the government has really repressed them using weapons of war against the demonstrators. At the moment, the situation for the demonstrators in the street, the atmosphere is like a war zone, and some people are trying to escape from it. I have to emphasize that among Iranian people, Trump is the most popular person right now. He has so much popularity because of the steps that he took toward preventing the growth of terrorism in the Middle East. They respect him. The internet blackout in Iran continues, making it difficult for people to get new information, although international calls were briefly going through overnight.
Welcome back to Truth Thursday. The Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, unite or die. Working together, Iranian resistant movements can defeat tyranny. And folks, I've been supporting Iranians who want freedom from the Muslim extremist mullahs in their country for 47 years of my life. No kidding. I've made it no secret that I grew up around Muslim extremism and also had an adopted cousin who my uncle found orphaned while building the oil fields of Iran. And that guy is a wonderful Iranian who loved the freedom America brought to him after his parents were killed. Unfortunately, he passed away several years ago. There are two resistance organizations today working very hard to bring democracy back to Iran, and the Iranian resistance needs both of them. They need the MEK's or the NCRI's fire, and they need Reza Pahlavi's blueprint. Mr. Pahlavi would be the crown prince. He was the son of the Shah. And I'm telling you, as a retired Air Force colonel who spent decades staring down tyrants, I've learned one hard truth. Freedom is not won by wishful thinking or symbolic gestures alone. It takes boots on the ground, organization, courage under fire, and a clear plan for the day after you get the victory. And right now, in early 2026, the Iranian people are once again in the streets defying this murderous mullahs in what feels like the regime's final death throes. The question every Iranian patriot should be asking is simple. Which resistance group has the real capability to sustain and amplify these protests inside Iran itself? The answer, if we're being really honest, is the People's Mojahedin Organization of Iran, or the MEK, and its political umbrella, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI. Look, I'm not here to sugarcoat anything or play favorites. I've followed this fight closely for years, and I'm not paid by anyone. I just care about the people of Iran. The MEK has something no other opposition group can match, and that's a structured, disciplined network of resistance units that are operating right now inside Iran. These aren't armchair exiles posting memes from Paris or Los Angeles. The MEK's internal network is the backbone of organized resistance on Iranian soil. That's just a fact. They have a clear chain of command that reaches from the exile leadership cells inside the country, and they pulled off sophisticated intelligence operations in the past, even exposing the nuclear sites and regime atrocities to the world. When the regime cracks down, it's the MEK's channels that keep information flowing out and encouragement flowing in. They're carrying the message of President Trump and the people of the United States. In short, when it comes to sustaining and escalating protests on the ground, the MEK is in a league of all of its own. They also have a political vision, and then it's concrete. It's not vague. Miriam Rajabi's 10-point plan lays out a future democratic, secular, non-nuclear Iran with gender equality, minority rights, and separation of religion and state. And more importantly, the NCRI has published that detailed transition roadmap, a provisional government that's going to be able to get going as soon as boots get on the ground. That's the way it is. But let's talk about Mr. Pahlavi. Look, as the son of the last Shah, he carries historic weight. He commands genuine affection among many Iranians who remember a freer Persia. He's worked to position himself as a unifying voice while he's been in exile. Look, he was an Air Force Academy graduate, 17 years old when this all happened. Here in the United States, we're the same age. He's been calling for a secular democracy, and he refuses to restore the monarchy without a referendum. But I think he's even gone further than that. When it comes to supporting protests inside Iran today, though, his infrastructure is limited. There are no known underground networks or resistant units answering to Mr. Pahlavi within the country. His strength lies elsewhere, though, particularly in his detailed post-regime planning. He's got initiatives like the Iran Prosperity Project. His team has produced serious blueprints for economic recovery, infrastructure rebuilding, and stability in the first chaotic months of collapse. Their emergency phase plans for the first 180 days cover everything from securing oil field facilities to restarting the economy. That kind of technocratic foresight, it's invaluable for what comes after victory. But here's the bottom line. If the metric is raw capability to fuel and organize these ongoing protests inside Iran, the MEC, NCRI, is the organization that we can rely on. They have grassroots muscle. Mr. Pahlavi brings symbolic legitimacy, international connections, and superior economic planning reconstruction. And this regime is weaker than it's been in decades. So I've called on Mr. Rajabi and Mr. Pahlavi to put aside their differences and try to work together to bring this organization into a coalition that can lead the Iranian people to victory once the revolution is won. And that's the bottom line. And my first guest today is a wonderful guy I met several years ago, Ali Reza Jafarzadeh, the Deputy Director of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, U.S. Representative. He's an author, and he's a TEDx speaker, too. Ali Reza, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, sir. Okay, it looks like we've lost our guest, and we'll see if we can get him back. Do we have our second guest? Yeah, that's fine. So that's the point of everything, and we'll see if we can get Mr. Jafarzadeh back to come back in and speak to this, because he's the one that's got the update of what's really going on inside Iran right now. The latest reporting that I have from them, and it's been confirmed that the Iranian security forces have killed over 3,000 protesters, and we want to get an update on that, because I heard through the night that it's over 10,000 or more now, and that's pretty sad. Unfortunately, or fortunate, well, I don't know if it's unfortunate or fortunate, but the United States did not take any military action last night, as was predicted by a lot of folks, and that is probably working into their calculation. But it's my understanding that the protests are ongoing, even though the Iranian government has cut off the internet and gone dark. That's what they do when they start shooting protesters with live ammunition. It's been done many, many times in the past. And the President of the United States has said that they need to stop killing those protesters, or he's going to take action. Unfortunately, I think he has seen some new information and decided not to conduct any military attacks. So we've got our other guest ready to go. She is Hadaya Falco, and is a former U.S. government national security professional, has been a senior advisor to the FBI, specializes in international terrorism, assessing international terrorist groups, assessing exile groups that are operating outside of their own countries, and advising the United States government. Has a career of 25 years. Adea, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me, Colonel. It's an honor.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your service.
And I appreciate you coming on early, short notice. Looks like
Yes.
we've lost our first guest. Well, let me ask you to orient ourselves. Have you gotten any updates from inside the country in the last 24 hours as to what's going on?
It's a little bit chaotic. I mean, my friends that follow this closely, that have relationships, family members, I personally don't have family members, say that, the killing has continued despite, President Trump focusing on the executions, which didn't take place. There are the mass executions, the public executions. There are still killing on the streets. The people are still out. They still believe this is their final battle. But I don't know how disillusioned people may be from the lack of military intervention.
Yeah, it's probably disappointing if they were hoping for it. But what I hear from folks that I've been talking to for 10 years now is that they're really not calling for U.S. military intervention. What they really desire more is support from the United States government. Things like stopping the flow of oil into Iran. Is that your take on this?
Yeah, and so actually, having been involved in several regime changes, I was actually in Afghanistan. I was on Paul Wolfowitz's team when we were going into Iraq. We don't have a really good reputation for interventions, and especially we tend to choose the wrong players. I mean, even our experience with Hamid Karzai trying to prop up his government, trying to gain legitimacy, and that collapsed like a deck of cards that, within 24 hours that we left. It's also the problem we had in Iraq with Ahmed Chalabi and, trying to create a coalition government. And the problem there was we actually unemployed 300,000 Sunnis that suddenly turned into ISIS. And so we're not good at regime change. And so what I've actually been asking for is, other than military intervention, we have the cyber and PSYOP capabilities of really handicapping this Islamic regime and the IRGC. And the IRGC is a designated foreign terrorist organization. There are so many financial mechanisms that we could be employing that are yet to have been used in a really robust way, which would cripple the Islamic regime and cripple their ability to oppress their people. So I would like to see more of that happen. I would like them to see, I would like to see them limit the invasion that are coming in. Like, we have the reports of Iraqi military leaders, other militias coming in to help the regime crack down on their people. I would like to see us help limit that based on our regional influence. And so there's a whole range of options that they could be engaged in outside of direct military strikes.
Let's hope we're not going to do a nuclear strike for no good reason. Sorry. I know that was a slip of the tongue. So it sounds like you agree with both Steve Bannon and I. I mean, we're both in that realm of look, it's the Iranian people on the ground that really have to make this decision. And for the third or fourth time since I've been watching it, they're trying again this time, and they really haven't asked for kinetic military action. But I agree with you. The cyber operations, that's a good move. That's a good move. More real sanction enforcement, like I said, and Steve said it this morning. Stop the oil from getting into Iran.
Yes.
That can easily be done and increase the pain on the Iranian government and the IRGC. I mean, when you look at this as an expert that's been involved in regime changes from a U.S. government perspective, just like I have, when you look at this, I mean, what would an air attack need to look like if the president decided to do that from your perspective? I mean, I have my thoughts on it. I'll give them, but I want to give you a chance to give your perspective on that, because I think it's a very high mountain to climb.
It's a very what?
High mountain to climb to do a regime change airstrike without any kind of ground involvement.
Yeah, I mean, we can do targeted military strikes against the leadership. You know, we take out the leadership. I mean, President Trump already told Khamenei, we know where you are. So I think between Israel and the U.S., they could be very targeted strikes against the leadership. And I think the real question that I want to address also with you is the issue of MEK is the day two. What does day two look like? And I'm really surprised by the comment that MEK is kind of leading the resistance and they are the ones with the infrastructure, when the crowds and the people are clearly yelling Javid Shah, and that their loyalty and their hope is in Reza Pahlavi. So I'm curious why you accept that credibility. I realize that the MEK has a lot of credibility in the US government, especially after Iraq. I mean, I saw their involvement in helping with intelligence after the 2003 invasion. And I guess those loyalties have been established, and they've been established, you know, as you mentioned, from financial transactions and PR arrangements. But why would the people not be chanting for MEK? What proof do we have that they have any credibility right now amongst the Iranian people?
Well, I think there are as many chants, even more from what I've seen, of, no dictators, no Ayatollah, no Shah, too. And the MEK infrastructure that I'm familiar with, and it's not like I just came upon these guys. We've looked at them. I have my own sources and contacts that have been in their spaces in the areas where they live in exile, and have been to meetings with them. I've spoken with them several times and seen the actual information that comes out of the country of Iran. And honestly, from an intelligence perspective, and I did a little bit of intelligence work too in the U.S. Air Force, from the perspective I have and from all of my sources that have the same types and levels of contacts, and even more. I haven't been to where these guys are at, but I have contacts that have done that several times over the last 7 or 8 years. And from my perspective, they have the credibility. And it appears to the average observer that Mr. Pahlavi's folks have just appeared out of nowhere. Where have they been for 6 years? One of the questions I got this morning was at another show that I was being interviewed on is, well, where have these folks been for 6 years? Because I was talking about my proposal that Mr. Pahlavi and the NCRI folks need to come together and create a coalition of resistance to move forward and be entirely successful in any type of revolution, quite frankly, especially after day two, as you said. So there's that question too. There's a lot of questions on both sides, and we see a lot of information level campaigns on both sides. I was going to ask Ali Reza about that on some of this stuff. Unfortunately, he's not here to take that side of the argument. But I did see that you were advocating on a video. I think it was you for a constitutional monarchy return with the Shah. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, his platform is basically calling for the national referendum. But if they asked him to lead to create a constitutional monarchy with a republic that has democratic values, that has representation, that brings in the coalition of actors, because there's other people other than MEK that want a role in this government, that would be what the people want. And I think for you and me both, right? We want this Islamic regime to collapse. And ultimately, we want the Iranian people to have a free and representative government. And so if they're calling on the Shah to lead that movement, isn't that what we should be supporting, rather than doing what we usually do in the US government, is choose the actors and airdrop them in?
That's exactly right. You're exactly right. And my point is that from what I've seen, the preponderance of evidence shows that they're not calling on the Shah. They're calling on a free
Wow.
and
Okay.
tyranny-free Iran because nobody trusts the Shah. Even though, look, he was an Air Force Academy cadet when all this went down, and he's been in America ever since. Even though I think the president even said he's a nice guy, but he doesn't think he has the support inside the country. But that's part of the discussion that needs to happen, I think, and why I've called for these two groups' leaders to come together, because together they generate much greater power and impact than they do separately, because they're in two different lanes. Well, we got to take a break. I apologize. I did not take my break on time, so I got to take a commercial break. We'll be right back, and I think we'll see another clip. This one will be something about Intel and nukes. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
There's no organization that's done more to bring down this dictatorship. The original information about Iran enriching uranium for the purpose of developing an atomic weapon comes directly, without any question, from the resources and the people of the Mujahideen al-Khalq, which is the MEK. That was in 2003. 4 years later, they discovered another Fordo, which is one that was bombed. They discovered another one. That led to tremendous serious concern about their developing a bomb. And they then disclosed two more. And then at some period, this happened in series and rounds of times. All of a sudden, in one short period of time, 9 of the major nuclear scientists that Iran had, who of course were invaluable to getting to the next stage, somehow found themselves dead.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and we're trying to tell the truth about the Iranian resistance groups, the most well-known ones, that is. I'm sure there are other small groups out there that are not as well-known. And my guest today is Hedaya Falco, who is an expert in analyzing, of all things, resistance groups, and has worked in embassies, advising embassies, advising the FBI on international terrorism, Islamic terrorism, exile groups, and how they do their movements and do their messaging. And Hedaya, one of the questions I wanted to ask the deputy director of NCRI, had we not lost him, and I'll ask you this because I want to get your take on it. It's my understanding you understand this MEK NCRA group very well. What is driving the messaging that they are today an Islamic Marxist movement? What is driving that from your perspective?
I think their internal operations, I think that's pretty clear that they're a Marxist Islamist movement. I mean, their leader, Mariam, wears a hijab. They have very strict control over their people. It's almost cult-like. There's a very strict organizational structure. There are very strict rules about what the community can and cannot do. And I want to also comment on this issue of them having intelligence. This really reminds me of what we did with Osama bin Laden, where we were so desperate to have an enemy of communism. We empowered a guy that had values antithetical to what we represented as the American people, and we created a Frankenstein. And so when we're suffering under the Marxist Islamist threat here in the United States and Europe, I'm surprised that we now again want to empower a movement that would ultimately hate everything that we represent. And I just wish that we would want for the Iranian people the same thing we want for themselves. And that's what they want. When you hear the calls for no kings from some people, they're not asking for Reza to come back as this absolute monarch. They're asking for him to lead the revolution to freedom. And he absolutely has connections to underground networks, because how would they be responding to his calls out into the streets, carrying his name and carrying the slogans, if they weren't connected to him? So I just wish, after all of these years that I have seen us choosing the wrong players, I just wished for once we'd listen to the messages of these two groups and the history, and say, well, you know what, this one posits a worldview that is something that I agree with, rather than thinking,
Yeah.
The Middle East is going to be subject to Islam forever, who cares?
Yeah.
Because they're clearly a Marxist Islamist organization. That's the fundamentals
okay,
of
let me
their
stop
belief.
you right there. You
Okay.
said clearly several times. What specifically? Because I've been in meetings with folks. I've looked at their work that they're doing today. I've analyzed the 10-point plan. So have many other Americans in the national security space that I know and trust. And we don't come to that conclusion today. Now, obviously, everybody's got a history. Look, by all rights, I shouldn't say anything nice about Pahlavi. The Shah's government was a disaster, and in large part caused a lot of what was happening in 1979. So everybody's got some culpability here, I think. But when you look at the products they're producing today, and even though Miss Rajavi wears a hijab, that's not what's in their proposals for their 10-point plan and governance going on. And again, that's why the reason I proposed that Pahlavi work with these folks and the two groups work together is because I see that they're not an Islamist Marxist. Now, are they Muslim? Yes, there's no denying that. But if the two groups could work together and generate enough power, we might actually see the tyranny of the mullahs and the death and destruction that they bring and want to bring be eliminated from the face of the earth. And I think that's a good thing. It's not about picking who the wrong person is and putting all your eggs in one basket. Not in my perspective. This is my proposal that we're talking about here, not necessarily the U.S. government's proposal. I mean, there is many people on the other side that are going to say, well, if the U.S. government goes with the new Shah, the same kind of disaster that happened there is likely to happen again, which is not true, but that's the messaging that's going to happen. So specifically, where do you see in their proposals that they're an Islamist Marxist group?
So I would not look at what they say for a Western audience to decide who they are as people. I think that's the trap that we often fall into as Western diplomats, is that we read something that they create for a Western audience and think that that's how they govern their own people. I'm talking about what people who have been within that organization talk about, what their leadership structure is and what they've advocated for their people. So we have Iranian dissidents and reporters and commentators that have culled through their literature about what they produce internally. And you are right, they are producing intelligence that's valuable to the US because they are enemies of the Islamic regime. The enemy of my enemy isn't necessarily my friend. He may just be another enemy. And that's what I'm saying.
That.
Is
you know that I understand. You know that I
Right.
understand that, right? You're
Right.
not
So-
lecturing me, right? Okay.
No, I'm saying that,
I
that
definitely
they just may
understand
be an
that, but
enemy.
What I'm saying is that the Iranian people, large groups of them, do not see them as the enemy either. It's the regime that sees the MEK as the enemy, and it's the most terrified of them as an enemy And they've killed over 130,000 of them over the last 40 years to prove it. So and they haven't done anything to give the U.S. government at this point in their history, at this point now, to not be trusting of them, at least the trust but verify mode, which is the same thing, Grace, that I would give Mr. Pahlavi, who I agree with you, does not, I don't believe, wants to be a Shah or a king or even a constitutional monarch. I'm going to play a clip later in the show, I think, if I still have it, that shows him saying he doesn't care what form the democracy takes.
Yes.
He just wants to be a part of helping the Iranian people get to where they want to be. And that's what I've asked him to do in my op-ed that I published yesterday. And what I'm calling for with this show is for him to do that. And if that's the case, then he and the NCRI leadership are in really close enough agreement where they could work together. And the trust between the two of them, I think, is more important than any trust the U.S. government would need. It's not about us backing horses, especially since we're not going to do a regime change op, I hope. Well, I got to run. I appreciate you coming on. Wait a minute. I got a question from my live audience. Let me hold off on the break and take that question for you. I know it's for you. Go ahead, AJ.
Colonel, thank you, sir. Esteemed Ms. Falco, my question is, has anyone, because you talked about U.S. officials and their relationship with the MEK in 2003 in regards to the information that they have supplied about Saddam Hussein to the U.S., has anyone seen the trend of conduct within MEK over the years? Because what MEK did with the U.S. officials in regards to Saddam Hussein in 2003 is exactly what MEK did with Saddam in regards to providing information about the Islamic Republic against Iran to aid Saddam in the 80s. What are your thoughts on that? With that, I yield. Thank you.
Yes, it looks like they make strategic alliances that are to their benefit. So they're willing to turn. And that's also disconcerting. It's a great point because we don't know ultimately where their allegiance lies. And Colonel, I gotta say, if day two looks like, they come in for this national referendum and MEK does have the ground support that you claim and they have a seat at the table, I don't have a problem with that. And of course, it's not for you and me to decide. If they do have the ground support that you claim or that they claim they have, then they deserve a seat at the table.
Well, I'm claiming that I've seen enough evidence to show that their claims are credible. But yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, that's what my whole point is, and that's why I think this needs to happen. A coalition with these two leaders coming together before you get to even day zero, because you may not be able to get to day zero if you don't do this, if you have these two disparate groups, even though they agree in 90% of the way forward and how the government ought to look. If you don't go forward with that and you can't get to day zero, then there's no reason to have a day two plan at all. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Maybe you could broker the meeting.
I'd be happy to broker the meeting. Unfortunately, my other guest dropped out on me for some reason. We lost our connection with him. So thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, for the next two segments, we're going to talk about our friend Scott Adams. And the audience will be participating in that as we talk about how we remember Scott and what he brought to folks' lives. And I'll be right back.
Because I wanted 3 points. The support that the NCRI is the main alternative because of the work they have done over the past 47 years. Number 2, to support the uprising in Iran, and most importantly, the resistant units inside Iran that have spread the uprising to over 200 cities, and to declare my support and my family's support for establishment of the free democratic Iran, led by NCRI.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and we're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And the second half of the show is going to be dedicated to our friend Scott Adams, the author and creator of Dilbert, who passed away just days ago at age 68 from cancer that he fought a long, hard battle with. And and we're going to go open mic with the audience as I promised. And I'll just start off with mine. My story, you know, Scott is a very famous guy. And when his book, Reframe Your Brain, came out, I reached out to him, never met him before, never communicated with him before, to see if he would come on the show to talk about the book, because I had read the book and it was a very, very good book. And he responded right away, gave me his personal phone number, his personal email address, treated me like somebody he had known for many, many years, and as both a friend and a colleague. And that's the way the planning for the show went. At some point, I'll republish that archived interview that I did with him on video again, just as a memorial to him from my perspective, what the little bit that I can do. But something that I didn't realize at the time, and I was very grateful for him coming on the show. Like I have been very grateful for some. I've had some very big people that have become very big, and people that were very big on this show, like Vice President Vance, before he became a U.S. Senator when he was in his primary. So I was very grateful to Scott for doing that, but also for establishing a relationship and maintaining it all the way up through the end of his life. From my perspective, we were friends and colleagues from that point on after I reached out to him, and he treated our relationship that way. But he treated everybody that way, which is why I think he started doing the Coffee with Scott show in the mornings, so that he could get more of what he knew into the minds of people that were able to both listen and digest the things he talked about and what he was trying to teach. And it's amazing the following that he built in such a short period of time. And then I will also say that I prayed very hard for him to accept Christ as his Savior, as a Christian myself. And was very pleased to see out of the blue that first he was considering it, and then that as his last comments to the human race on this planet, he confirmed that he did convert to Christianity as he was going out and crossing the river, as they say. And I'm sure Christ met him right there and welcomed him to paradise exactly the way he did the thief on the cross next to him, the way he did Doubting Thomas and others who doubted at first, eventually believed. I want to go over to the audience and let the audience give input because, as I said, Scott created a massive following, and I think he touched every person's life that's on X in some way or another. Shell, go ahead. I know you have some comment.
Yes, sir. I absolutely adored Scott, sir. Now, the thing that was just so amazing to me was the strength that he maintained, even as weak as he was, to stay in touch with his audience, keep everyone updated, and continue with his Coffee with Scott spot there in the mornings, sir. It was just wonderful to see his resilience throughout this illness. And I couldn't say more about such a wonderful patriot, sir. He was always very supportive of all of us patriots. What did you think when you first heard that he had become ill, sir?
Well, you know, I'm sure you remember that cancer hit my family through my wife when we were still very young. I mean, we had a 5-year-old in the house and 12 and 15-year-olds in our house still when my wife came down out of the blue with cancer. And we spent several years. I retired from the Air Force because of it, so I could focus on getting her treatment and those kind of things. And it is a terrible disease. It affects every aspect of your life. Once it's in your body, I will tell you what my wife says. Once it's in your body, even though she's been cancer-free, let's see what year. So she's been cancer-free for 14 years. 14 years, never a problem. Even though that's the case, she said that every moment of her life, she still thinks about that and wants to have a mindset that fights against its recurrence. So you have to learn to live with that and those kind of things. So my first thoughts when hearing about Scott is, honestly, it was prostate cancer. For what I understand, I was like, well, he'll be okay. But he unfortunately had one of those rare types of prostate cancer that metastasize very rapidly and are difficult to fight.
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, about a month or so, an issue reared its ugly head, sir. And that dealt with Matt Gaetz, and it was aired out on Tucker Carlson's show. But I feel that Scott handled that fantastically well, and I wanted to know your thoughts on that and why. Somebody knowing Scott's illness would drag him into something of that magnitude after years of it being aired out, sir.
I'm sorry. Explain what you're talking about, so just so it's clear.
Where there was an issue of allegations towards former Congressman Matt Gaetz, sir.
Oh, I'm not familiar with Scott Adams' role in that.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll explain to you later, sir. It's no time now. But
I
thought he
want
handled
me
it.
to answer it. Ladies and gentlemen, Shell is setting me up.
I am, sir, right under the bus, sir.
Well, I will talk. I
no,
will speak to the reason he got canceled was stupid. Okay, he made a comment, and I'm paraphrasing it because I don't have it memorized exactly, but he was commenting on population numbers and demographics by race numbers, and made a comment that was purely based on an analytical position and clearly not intended to be racist. There's an intent aspect to this kind of stuff, and the man is not a racist guy. He didn't have a racist bone in his body. You could tell just watching him for 10 minutes. And I think that's ridiculous that they canceled him, but they canceled him massively. And you know what, though? He came back. He came back in this way, and now he has left a following. I mean, they're doing Scott Adams meetups in cities all around the country, and he's only been gone a few days.
Yes, sir. I saw that, and I think it's fantastic. Scott gave the country a lot, even with just the Dilbert cartoon, sir. He kept us looking forward to the next one every single time. And what a way to impact your country. I thought it was brilliant, sir. And I loved when he started it. I remember that. And I know we're telling our age now, sir, but I do remember that. And I thought it was fantastic and a wonderful way to reach with his message. What did you think about the Dilbert cartoon, sir?
I loved it. That's how I knew who he was. I had no idea he was writing books and those kind of things until Reframe Your Brain popped out. And then I started researching him. I'm like, oh, man, because I have a Dilbert calendar on my desk today. I loved reading his comic in the newspaper. I used to get the daily newspaper delivered to my house. That was one of the comic strips that I read every single day. And it was fabulous because it was based on it was sarcastic humor, real life, and somebody did a strip, but I think it was today. I don't know if it was yesterday or today. My timeline's so messed up on X, but when I saw it, it was a Dilbert comic cartoon, and it was about he's sitting at the computer. Dilbert's sitting at the computer, and the Dogbird says over his shoulder, "Hey, the boss is coming down to give you some feedback." And the next frame is Christ behind him holding a cup of coffee, and he turns around and looks, and he's surprised to do that performance assessment, appraisal. I mean, that's the kind. I think Scott would love that. I think he would have loved it.
I think he would have too, sir. Yeah. Sir, what were some of your favorite highlights of your little talk with Mr. Scott, sir?
Well, the concept of reframing, I think, he just spent an hour with me talking about why he wrote the book, but also how the concept works. And that's the part that I liked about the interview the most, that he was very patient and went through the book, almost page by page. It's a quick read and an easy read. And it's all about reframing yourself. So kind of like what I'm trying to do with the Iranian resistance issue. The standard framing on the NCRI is that they're Marxist Islamist, and the standard and they want a new tyranny basically in Iran. And the standard framing on Mr. Pahlavi is that he's going to be a new king, a new Shah, and the same old atrocities from their secret police are going to happen again. Well, when you reframe it to that the NCRI has the MEK forces on the ground inside of Iran, and we have this wonderful opportunity that's never really been presented itself before. And Mr. Pahlavi is a guy that's got the notoriety, but wants a democracy too that is almost identical to what the NCRI lays out on their website. I encourage people to go check out their website and those kind of things because they're very closely aligned if you look at them. So reframing that from two groups that are opposing each other and they might actually get into a civil war to two groups that can develop a coalition and go in on day two after, first of all, bring the revolution to fruition and oust the tyrannical mullahs and that government completely and eliminate the IRGC and eliminate things like crushing of rights on women so they don't have to wear a hijab. You can go back to a westernized lifestyle and have a government that's not related to your religion and have separation of government and religion. That's the reframe, is that these two individuals have it within their power to combine their operations and combine their movements and move forward and take Iran further into the 21st century. And the people of Iran get to make that decision on what the government looks like. That's the reframe instead of this potential civil war between these two groups. And that's what I learned from Scott Adams in that book. Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion of Scott Adams. But I'm going to go ahead and have Mr. Producer Thomas play the clip of Mr. Pahlavi because I want it documented in the show. We'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
Are you planning to go back to Iran? You have not been there in many, many years. It was 1979 when the Ayatollah came back. He was in exile in France at the time. Do you plan on going back? Do you plan on having free elections? Have you thought about it?
Sean, at the call of my compatriots, I've stepped forward to lead this transition from this tyranny to a future democracy. My role is to help my compatriots achieve that goal, to bring about a peaceful end by means of a national referendum and a constitutional assembly. I'm impartial as to what the ultimate result will be, so long as it's a secular democracy. I've trained all my life to serve my nation. I'm there to serve and help them achieve that goal, and I'm more than ever ready to step in Iran as soon as the situation warrants itself, and I'll be there with my compatriots to lead the ultimate battle.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and right there you had some truth. It's what I've been talking about. Mr. Pahlavi did what I called on him to do in my op-ed that was published yesterday, and said, I don't care if it's a monarchy or not. What I care about is the Iranian people and a democracy that they choose to do. He just wants to serve his country again. There's plenty of space and maneuvering room for the NCRI and Mr. Pahlavi's team to come together and really generate the momentum that will remove the Ayatollahs and this tyrannical, inhuman, murderous government that has brought nothing but death and destruction around the world and disruption to the Middle East since I was 17 years old. And this is a good opportunity, and I hope they take it. I pray for them every day. I support the NCRI very much so, and think they are right where they need to be. And the Iranian people deserve their help, and they're getting it. They're getting it. Only people inside the country. And I stand by what I said on that. We're talking about Scott Adams there. We have no hands in the audience unless I can't see him. This X has been acting funny, Shell.
We have no hands, sir, but I have one more question for you when it comes to Scott. The lady that delivered his message shortly after his passing, sir, her heartbreak. Oh, it was just hard to watch, but his poise and grace at the end of his life to write that to his fan base, sir. I was wondering, was there any part of that really touched you, sir? Because when he said the things that, pained him before he left, it was heart-wrenching, sir, but he did it with such grace. And I thought that was wonderful. And I was wondering, did you get to hear that, sir?
I've only heard snippets of it. I haven't had a chance to hear it, quite honestly. We weren't going to do this today, or I'd be better prepared. But I've heard snippets of it. And what I do know about his final comments, and I've read the statement, but I haven't seen the video, is that he was thinking about others. The only part about thinking about himself in that whole statement was when he, at the very end, when he says that he is accepted Christ as his Lord and Savior, and that he hopes to meet him here shortly. But all the rest of his comments, really, he was thinking about others. He was still teaching. And that's what's incredible, because he's captured a whole generation. I'm old. I'm 64. But he captured a whole generation of young men that say things like he's our internet dad, that he embraced their challenges, and he did his level best every single day of the rest of his life after he got canceled to try to help especially these young men that feel that are disenchanted with America, that don't feel they have the opportunity for prosperity that their parents had, that feel like, especially white young men, that feel like the deck is being stacked intentionally against them just over something they can't have no control over, which is the exact thing that happened to people of color earlier in history of all governments, okay? Not just the United States government, all governments. It was like that. And him speaking to them and taking the time to not just teach them, but to mentor them and act like he was their dad, literally. And they say it. Go look for it. Type in Internet Dad on X, and you will find Scott Adams there, and all of these people that just love this man because he thought about them more than he thought about himself. I mean, he even held back his illness, I think, for their sakes as long as he could before he had to talk about it. And then when he did talk about it, he talked about his disease. I remember when I first saw the video, I said, well, he's not worried about himself. He's worried about his team that he talks to every day, his following, his followers, and folks that he's tried to give hope to teach it, like in Reframe Your Brain, like teach how to look at a positive perspective and take something that's normally negative and reframe it into a positive so you can succeed. How to succeed in the other book, how to lose bigly and and still win. I'm not sure exactly what the title is, but that's the concept. That's a great book. And he taught from that book every single day. Every time he opened his mouth, he was talking about something like that because he was always thinking of others. And I think that's what impressed me most about him. It gets back to the way when I reached out to him, he immediately responded and turned a TV guest and host relationship into a friendship. It wasn't a daily friendship, but with friends and colleagues, and that's the way he treated it and treated me. That's what he has done even more for the young, especially the young men. But there are young women involved too. This entire generation that he was speaking to consider him their internet dad, and it's because he put them before he put himself. And that's hard to do, especially when you're dying of something like cancer.
Yes, sir, it is. They may have canceled him, sir, but Patriots brought him back. We weren't going to let him go. And I love that about our community, sir.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Well, sir, a beautiful tribute.
Yeah.
And I wish that we had a video for that, but maybe soon we can get that arranged, huh?
Sure, yeah. We got a few minutes left. Any questions out there in the audience?
Not that I see, sir, but AJ just opened his mic. What you got, AJ?
I was just going to ask, how do you think Scott Adams will be remembered, sir, in the context of not necessarily cartoons and comic strips, but politically, because memories have a different best used date rather than actual, tangible items that have been created.
Yeah, I think that Scott Adams will be known by his enemies. Mike Cernovich pointed that out when the New York Times, despicably, I might add, ran a headline for his obituary that smeared him as a racist. And one more time. And Mike Cernovich said something to the effect, when you're known by your enemies and your enemies do this to you, even in death, then you are one great human being. And I think that's how he'll be remembered, as the greatest human being, probably of American society in this time of our lives.
I agree, sir.
Yeah,
that was shameful, though.
Yeah.
Why can't we get past acting like this as adults, sir, no matter what side you're on? I don't understand that. It's so bad. Even the attacks on Charlie Kirk after he was murdered, sir, it was just terrible. But again, I have so much faith in our patriots, sir, to, cancel them for acting so low.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all very much for joining me today. Thanks for this discussion on Scott and helping remember Scott Adams, and for the discussion on Iran. I have high hopes for the Iranian people. And remember, it's the Iranian people inside the country that are doing what they're doing and making these decisions. And I hope the decisions that they're making lead to their freedom very much sooner rather than later, and that this time it succeeds. God bless you all. God bless the people of Iran.
We have a big announcement, folks, something we've been waiting on for several months, and it's now here. It's called Bella Melt. You were on it
for just 1 week when you lost 3 pounds. So in the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's